All right, let's try to cover the beginning of Mbiti's book. So I'm going to work through the lecture notes that I'm posting as well on the introduction, chapter 2, and a discussion of Sasa and Zamani. And I've pulled up here the Zamani project just to give you a sense of how this term is influencing even the most contemporary geospatial digital projects as a way to capture the essence of African heritage. They're calling this the Zamani Project. I hope by the time I'm done with this little lecture that you're going to feel like that makes a lot of sense, that if you were an architect or surveyor wanting to help capture and restore the cultural heritage of Africa, you might call your project the Zamani Project. So, in the introduction on page 4, Mbiti begins to link African religions and philosophy to a primary issue, time. So it might be kind of odd to think we're starting a study of African religions and we're heading first into time. As Americans, time is commodified. We spend it, we waste it, and time is money. We project much of the meaning of life onto a screen where our future lies, where we will experience economic security, leisure, and for many in Christian faiths, an afterlife that will be better than this life. So a real forward focus. A colleague once wrote a paper titled, "My Future's So Bright I'm Already Dead," in which she examined all of the ways that American culture drives us forward with metaphors of progress, advancing in the American dream, and investing in the future. I'm not saying that all Americans feel this way or that you feel this way, but that American culture has a decided bias toward the future and the next iPhone and the caffeine that will keep you driving forward. Contrast this generalization of American culture, right? It's generalization, so it's not expansive, but contrast this with Mbiti's characterization of African religion. And this is from page 4, and I'm going to read this quote because it's a good one, and I've thrown in a few comments. Belief in the continuation of life after death is found in all African societies as far as I've been able to discover. But this belief does not constitute a hope for a future and better life. To live here and now is the most important concern of African religious activities and beliefs. There's little, if any, concern with the distinctly spiritual welfare of humans apart from their physical life. That is, here's my insert, the future is not with the focus is not with the eternal condition of your soul, but rather with the prosperity and health of your body now. No line is drawn between the spiritual and the physical we're back to Mbiti's words. And so if my physical is not well now, then something is wrong, and this is the religious concern. Even life in the hereafter is conceived in materialistic and physical terms. There is neither paradise to be hoped for, nor hell to be feared in the hereafter. The soul of man does not long for spiritual redemption or for closer contact with God in the next world. And you can contrast this to the Christian notion that heaven will be better because one will be closer to God, right? And so that's the reason heaven's a good place. And so this African does not have that interest or concern with proximity to God. Mbiti says this is an important element in traditional religions and one which will help us to understand the concentration of African religiosity in earthly matters, with man at the center of this religiosity. Now, this is my insert, when humans are understood to be the central most important organizing factor of creation, it is called anthropocentrism. Anthro meaning human, centrism meaning the center of it. And Mbiti develops this further in chapter 3. Now, back to him. It is here also that the question of African concept of time is so important. ATRs are concerned with humans in past and present time, not the future. God comes into the picture as an explanation of human contact with time. There is no messianic hope or apocalyptic vision with God stepping in at some future moment to bring about a radical reversal of normal life. God is not pictured in an ethical, spiritual relationship with humans. Humans' acts of worship and turning to God are pragmatic and utilitarian rather than spiritual or mystical. You're going to get this by the end of the book. This notion that we are talking about a utilitarian, not mystical union with God, right? It would be the goodness of the moment and the meal and the wellness of your community that would let you know that things are good. In Chapter 2, he covers the history of who has written about African religions and philosophy and how African religions have been represented. We learn how not to think about African religions. And it's interesting on page 8 when he says that you'll see that time is again an issue. You've got to understand time in Africa to understand why when they pour beer on the floor every day, some kind of libation, some kind of food shared with the people in your family who have died, it is not ancestor worship because it is being in time with them and keeping touch with them. So this is not about worship. So our takeaways from Chapter 2, that there is a racist history of the study of African religions, which was usually accompanied with Christian triumphalism. Phrases like, we will save them from their savagery by bringing them the true religion. That kind of an idea that we are a superior religion gets mingled in with Europe is better and more advanced than Africa. And so it gives you a two-layered kind of devaluation of the African religion. But after the 1950s, more structural and sociological analyses begin with less racism and less Christian hierarchy. So now your academics are not speaking about the superiority of Christianity when they're telling you about the differences within traditions. Second takeaway point, it's not ancestor worship. When they make daily offerings to their deceased ancestors, it's not worship. It is related to the notion that the most important time is the time we have experienced, and we must keep in contact or in touch with the spirits of these relatives with which we experience time. This is pragmatic communication, not ancestor worship. Third takeaway, it is not right to say that African religion is magic. The relationship of magic, and magic here we'll define as the ways that humans can manipulate energy to do their bidding. I could take a piece of bone, I could take some of your hair, I could take this rock that I did special things to and make you do something I want you to do. Those kinds of ideas of magic, right? So magic is when you can take the material world and impact what's happening. Don't reduce all African religion to magic, which some of the earlier guys did. Rather, magic is part of a larger complex about thinking of humans as intimately interconnected with the power of material items in the world. I'm so connected with the power of this religious universe that I can manipulate in it. And that would be the magical elements. But that is not all that African religions are. So, he concludes Chapter 2, he's going to treat religion as an ontological phenomena. Ontos, being, and logos, the thinking of being. And I'm putting in there the Wikipedia definition of ontology because it's a really good definition for our purposes. So go to the paper. I'm not going to read out that definition, but you'll see that Mbiti will be providing us with a study of African religions that begins with space and time because all things exist, onto, have their being in space and time, followed by subdivisions of the most important groupings within and across the traditions. So if you look at the table of context, you can see that he's doing ontology because he's organizing and grouping things in there. Chapter 3, the concept of time is key. Chapter 4, Nature of God. Chapter 5, The Works of God. Chapter 6, God and Nature. He's providing you with that organization for entering into their sense of a religious universe. So he's going to cover what entities exist, how such entities can be grouped, how they can be related within a hierarchy. He's going to subdivide according to similarities and differences. This is what an ontology does. So in chapter 3, Mbiti starts doing this. He tells us that it is fundamental to African religions that a person is born into a religious universe, is part of a religious drama, and from before their birth, right? Because there's destiny already at work in your birth, to the everyday activities and experiences you have with your biological and non-biological elements of the world. You're part of a religious drama, a religious universe. And he gives you the hierarchy of this world, because that's what an ontology provides. Let me break down the hierarchy for you. All right, 1, God. 2, spirits. 3, humans. 4, animals, plants, and all other biological life forms. And 5 are the non-biological elements. A rock could be a really important, powerful element in a religious universe. He divides then time into 2 categories: potential time and actual time. Now I'm tackling actual time first. He goes into potential time first. Actual time, what is present and what is past. Actual time moves backwards, not forwards. It's what we have experienced and can know. It's part of memory, so it moves backwards. It is like the mountain of genealogy upon which a person stands. This backward focus on actual time. And it is the focus. This is what matters. Look at the cape of being that extends behind me to my ancestors. That is what matters, not where I'm going. And then potential time is stuff that's going to happen. The seasons will change again next year. But since it hasn't happened yet, it isn't actual time. This is only a potential thing. It is not something to be worried about. All right. He proposes to use 2 Swahili words to express this worldview about time more precisely: sasa and zamani. Sasa is, quote, really an experiential extension of the now moment, stretched into the short future and into the unlimited past. So sasa is the now. It's got a very short future and an unlimited past. It feeds into the past. It's almost like that film screen going into your memories. Sasa feeds or disappears into Zamani, he says on page 22. Zamani is, quote, the final storehouse for all phenomena and events, the ocean of time in which everything becomes absorbed into a reality that is neither after nor before. It is a storehouse. Sasa is the period of conscious living. On the other hand, Zamani is the period of the myth, giving a sense of foundation or security to the Sasa period and binding together all created things. So Zamani is our big foundation, and our focus has to come from that, and our living will be now and feeding into that. All right. Good luck with the rest of it.